Imagine you hire a contractor for your dream home, and then he shows up without a blueprint. And he just kind of holds up his thumb and goes, close enough. Well, things are gonna get messy. When it comes to building apps and custom websites, a relational schema is that crucial blueprint to make sure everything is gonna connect seamlessly. Relational schemas are vital in all the early stages of any app or custom website development. They're going to show you how different pieces of your data connect, such as your users, your posts, your photos, and it helps prevent issues before they even arise. Without one, it's like starting construction without a plan. Let's break it down with a real-world example. Imagine you're building a basic blog where we have tables for users, posts, and media. In this simple relational schema here, we have three main entities. We have a users table with stuff like ID, name, and email. Then we have a post table with post ID, post title, post content, etc. Finally, we have media, where we have an identifier for the media, the URL, where to find the media, maybe an alt tag like for screen readers, and a title for that media. And you're gonna notice that we use these arrows here to relate how everything relates to one another. For example, a post is going to be created by a specific user. So we have a user identifier linking back to whoever that user is. Or we have media used in the post, where we have an identifier for that media to that post. Relational schemas help us see where things could go wrong before we even write a single line of code. It's going to help us see all the relationships and how they line up correctly. And if they don't line up correctly, you could be ending up duplicating data, or even worse, losing out on critical information. Now let's talk about some common mistakes here. One of the biggest is just not normalizing the data. What this means is you're not breaking your data into smaller, relatable pieces. If your tables aren't well organized, you're gonna end up having repeated data, which is gonna cause slower performance and is gonna give you errors down the road. In our previous example, a better approach would be to split up the post media into a post media table. Using our previous example, here's how normalizing data would work. As you can notice, media is a bit constrained, as we can only have one piece of media for one post. If we want to normalize our data, we're going to want to create a posts_media table. What that's going to do is enable us to have multiple pieces of media for multiple posts, meaning that we can use multiple different pieces of media for different posts. We could have the same banner image on two different posts or vice versa. And how we do that is by linking the post up with the media ID in a separate table. And what that does is then it allows us to know what that media is going to be used for, and it's going to have its own identifier that's then going to be able to be linked anywhere else in your system. And by doing this, you haven't overcomplicated it, you've just made it a little bit easier to use across the site. Another common mistake is overcomplicating the design. This is where people try to connect too many entities or just make relationships so convoluted that it just leads to a confusing database with weird structures and relationships that are hard to maintain. So there you have it. A relational schema is going to give you a clear map to guide your project. If you're dreaming of an app, make sure that you start with a solid schema, and you're going to avoid a ton of headaches later. I've actually had a conversation recently with someone who had this problem where they created a big app, but they never actually really thought about the relationships between the data. And then their app was taking like 10 seconds to load just to even like pop up. And that was because of poor relational schema planning. So this is a common issue that is often overlooked, but if you're going to be going with a custom web agency that's going to be building custom apps, you need to make sure that they're getting this relational schema out of the way. Very, very important. I cannot stress it enough. Anyway, stay tuned for top tips next time, where we're going to dive into a whole lot more interesting topics. See you then.